Namaste. Welcome back, beautiful souls, to my reflections on these Arthurian tarot decks. I've been thinking about these next three cards, Star, Moon, Sun, especially as I was walking in the forest today, one of my favorite times of day, and just thinking about how at the time that these stories were written, and even long before when these stories were set, how differently people connected to the stars, the sun, the moon, how the connection with the stars and the sun and the moon was so much more real and even important, perhaps. There's something about the busyness of our lives, the degree of electricity, and that will vary with where you live, obscuring your nighttime visibility, perhaps. But those of us who are doing this work somehow find ways to connect to the sky above, to observe the constellations, to be more aware of the moon and its phases. And I think there's something pretty important in these three cards that is worthy of pause. Or when one draws the 17th or the 18th or 19th arcanum, that there is a message of great connection available to you at this time. And perhaps there is some influence in another tarot study I'm doing at this time from the Minkyati Tarot. And not just these three cards, but the two that follow as well, the World and the Angel. Something about these cards, they're not numbered, they're treated differently. I just feel that here in the Star, the importance of pausing and listening is more important than ever. I've seen this card for ages as one of spaciousness and silence. And in that mood, in that space that is being created, the sense that perhaps shifts the most and becomes the most attuned is the one of hearing or listening. So let's listen carefully to the stories today and see if we can find a new level of understanding with the 17th Arcanum. Anna Marie Ferguson reminds us that this is a card of hope. It is a good omen and inspiration, one of rebirth and opportunity, rejuvenation of the spirit after a trying and traumatic time. And I don't think any of us forget that this is the card that follows the Tower. It signifies freedom and perhaps a clear road ahead. She also mentions that you may draw inspiration from the natural beauty that surrounds you. In the Fire Drake card, the Dragon of Comets heralds the promise of a new era. The storm clouds of the Tower have passed, followed by clear skies and indicating calm, fresh air and a chance to regroup. In this piece, one can recognize good omens sent from above. The comet blazes through the heavens and the hearts of people. The star was thought to be a divine messenger. The call of destiny instills great hope and faith in brighter days to come. The small stars represent aspirations, and the coming of the comet encourages one to take heart and reach for them. The horsemen ride in an open landscape, reflecting the freedom associated with the card. The wind blows cobwebs from the mind, clearing it of complicated details and dead wood. Now we are able to recognize the broader scope of things. And I think that's another aspect of this idea of space or spaciousness. With a lack of clutter, with space, we are able to see further, see wider. Here the horsemen break from their journey, water the horses, and marvel at the sight. This symbolizes that one can be content to rest and contemplate at this point in time. One of the horsemen draws water from the lake. This represents tapping into a free-flowing source of energy. The water is the source of life. It purifies, and heals the weary. And so I'm sure you can find connection here to your favorite star card, where the figure in the center of the card is pouring water, returning water to the earth. There's something here about cleansing and healing and an opportunity through this somewhat vulnerable image to begin again. And somehow, despite the vulnerability, we know that we are safe. Anna Marie goes on to say, with this rejuvenation and new clarity of vision, one can appreciate and draw both strength and inspiration from the surrounding beauty. Hence the fireflies in the foreground. Hearts are warmed by the sight of the little beacons in the night. In the John and Kathleen Matthews deck, a watchman witnesses a dragon-tailed comet over Logres. A second watchman sleeps. A cockerel heralds the dawning of a new era when the Pendragons will bring the land from anarchy, tribal rivalry, and invasion to a state of defensive peace. The dragon is the emblem of the Pendragons, Uther and his son, Arthur. In his History of the Kings of Britain, Geoffrey of Monmouth writes about a meteor in dragon shape which appears over Logres. Uther called Merlin to interpret this omen. Merlin immediately announced the death of Ambrosius Aurelianus and urged Uther to become king of Britain. The dragon was interpreted as being Uther himself, and the two rays which came from the dragon's mouth signified his son Arthur, whose dominion would be great, and Uther's daughter Anna, whose sons and grandsons would be kings of Britain. Uther immediately ordered the making of 2 golden dragons, one of which he gave to the Cathedral of Winchester, and the other which he carried into battle. And from an earlier version of the HalloQuest from 1991, the Matthews write, "It was C.S. Lewis in his novel That Hideous Strength who spoke of Logres as the inner Britain. All countries have their inner or essential nature. Within Celtic tradition, the other world is a reality in which this inner country is manifest. It is not the same as the physical land itself, but an archetypal expression of the land. Into this other worldly landscape go the seekers and questers. Within it they seek for the 4 hallows, which are active within the land, expressive of its essential nature." And so I'm intrigued with this term for Britain, Logres, which represents almost a magical and archetypal quality of a land, bringing energy and connection to all of the components in the picture, allowing the humans to step through a veil and the magic and mystery behind the veil to be revealed. There's something truly special about this card that allows us to feel the experience of what it would be like to step through to the other side, to feel the tingling on the body, to know that we are truly connected in a myriad of ways to energies we can only begin to understand. Claire Duval writes that in the second continuation of Percival is one of her favorite passages from Arthurian legend. There is a mysterious castle, which you can see in the background of the painting. Percival meets a fairy of captivating beauty. She is the Lady of the Stars, dressed in a beautiful starry red dress, and after beating him at chess, launches him into a highly symbolic adventure full of magic. Sounds a bit like Alice in Wonderland. Through his incredible adventures, Percival will let himself be guided by the different aspects of the feminine on the path to wisdom. And this brings in that incredible connection between the Fool card, where we are also invited to let go and to be brave enough perhaps to step in a direction we may not have stepped had we not let go of all of those expectations and perceptions that hold us back. And here in the Star card, once again, we have this sense of vulnerability. We have been through all kinds of tumultuous energy, trauma, and now we find ourselves again feeling rather vulnerable. And it is in this state that we are wide open to transformation and the possibilities of beginning to understand our great work may just become clear if we can listen. Claire Duval writes, "This card brings you hope, inspiration, and privileged contact with mystical forces. It brings light into the dark areas of your unconscious and is a valuable ally for self-knowledge. It is also an excellent card that can herald healing." And so I imagine this card not to be an easy one for those who fear change, for those who fear the unknown. But this is a space, it's a place that asks us to open our hearts, our minds, our soul to deeper forces, both seen and unseen. And from the guidebook of Legend the Arthurian Tarot, this is the Fire Drake. In turbulent times preceding Arthur's reign, the land was ruled by Arthur's grandfather, Constantine. On his assassination, the wily Vortigern saw an opportunity to seize the throne. Constantine had 3 sons, the oldest of whom was a monk named Constans. Vortigern encouraged Constans to leave his monastery and take up the crown. Constans followed the advice of Vortigern, but not much time passed before he too was assassinated. Vortigern then made his move and took the throne. Under such dangerous conditions, the guardians of Constantine's 2 younger children had the children taken out of the country to Brittany, safe from the ambitions of Vortigern. Residing here was the future hope of Britain, 2 boys, Aurelius Ambrosius and Uther, later to be the father of Arthur. In the days ahead, the people of Britain would draw strength from whispering their names and rumors of their ultimate return. While the boys grew, learned the arts of war, and raised an army, the policies of Vortigern plunged Britain into darkness. The Saxon mercenaries he had invited to Britain now entertained thoughts of conquering it for themselves. And despite this threatening undercurrent, Vortigern, drunk and driven by desire, offered Hengist, their leader, the land of Kent in trade for his daughter Rowena. This arrangement had disastrous consequences. The Britons were outraged at having a Saxon queen, and her kinsmen set about conquering the surrounding land. It was said that the cruelty of their ways drove the people of Britain ever westward. Some may have left the isle. Aside from these troubles, the Council of the Britons had wont of Vortigern as, whether true or not, charges of incest with his daughter now hung over his head. In light of all this, Vortigern fled to Wales, and you'll recall the story from the Tower card. It is here, in these dire times, that we see the triumphant return of Ambrosius and Uther. They crossed the Channel and led their army into Wales, trapping Vortigern in a fort. The fort caught fire in the battle that followed. The flames put an end to Vortigern and his tyranny. The brothers then turned their attention to the Saxons and captured Hengist, who was put to death for the murder of British noblemen. His remaining followers were consequently driven back. Britain began a slow recovery under the wise rule of Ambrosius. At the news of his death by poison, the people still suffered from their traumatic past, braced themselves, and gingerly looked for favorable signs of the future. It is during this precarious time that a beautiful comet traced the skies above the Isle of the Mighty. Its unusual shape resembled a dragon, which led Merlin to proclaim that it portended to Uther, the Pendragon, head dragon, the success of his coming reign and his son who would unite and bring peace to the land. Uther also drew inspiration from the omen and gave instructions to have 2 dragons fashioned of gold, one of which would become his battle standard. Uther would then come to be known as the Pendragon, the name, title, and standard that he would later pass on to his son. And so I wonder, in drawing this card, if it is time to cultivate an inner sanctuary, one where there is space and time, and perhaps even physical space, physical spaciousness, to begin to trust the idea of inner peace and healing and freedom. I know that when we come from a time of trauma, a tower experience of one sort or another, it can take years to recover. It can take years to let go, to find trust in the process. And I know many times, too many perhaps, I have offered clients a larger vision of tower moments. Find the lesson. Understand the gift of this tower moment. And often at the time, it's just too raw. There is too much hurt and pain to understand this. But here we find ourselves in the next phase, the phase of healing, the phase of greater clarity, when we perhaps are ready finally to listen. So do what you need to do to hone up your listening skills, to declutter, to make space and room to receive the messages that are coming to you, and know that this is indeed an opportunity for a new beginning and perhaps a path that you may not see far down the road. Thank you for being here, and thank you for your likes and subscribes. And as always, I look forward to your feedback and questions and comments. Namaste.